So are we really going to see the 7000 series of AMD GPUs this year? That's certainly been their roadmap, but that was announced a long time ago. And, this has not been the most normal year and a half. Are we going on 2 years now? I don't even know. The point is, a lot of things end up delayed or changed and all of that due to unforeseen circumstances with supply chains and work from home and all of that. So it's nice to see this. Now, this is over here at Seeking Alpha, who have a transcript from I think it's an interview or like a press release or something. I don't know exact details, but this is straight from AMD. I believe Lisa Su herself. And she announces, turning to 2022, demand for our product is very strong. And we look forward to another year of significant growth and share gains as we ramp our current products and launch our next wave of Zen 4 CPUs and the big one, RDNA 3 GPUs. Although honestly, Zen 4 CPUs is a big deal as well. We have also made significant investments to secure the capacity needed to support our growth in 2022 and beyond. And that's huge because we need those TSMC process node capacity purchases in order for any of this to mean anything. Because even if AMD gets all the technology ready, if they don't have the production capacity, then it's not going to get into our hands, at least for any sort of reasonable price. And then, even then, reasonable price, I'll give you some more thoughts on this. But anyway, while I am super interested in the Zen 4 CPUs, what I want to talk mostly about in this video is RDNA 3 GPUs, and what are we actually expecting from these things? Because I know some of you guys follow all the rumors of this stuff, all the time, but others start to tune in as we get closer to when the actual launch happens. So what do we know, or at least think we know about these? Also, if we're getting a Zen 4 and RDNA 3 launch at the end of this year, what a cool time, maybe expensive time, but what a cool time if you did want to build a full Team Red PC, brand new Zen 4 architecture along with your RDNA 3 GPU. Anyway, so I went ahead and I found over here at Video Cards, they have a good roundup of the rumored specs from these cards that based on a whole bunch of leaks from all sorts of different sources. Usually we start to get a rough idea, at least, of what the performance targets are and basic specs of cards, well before they actually launch. Now, so the highest end GPU die that they're going to create is going to be called Navi 31. RDNA 2, their high-end chip, like the 6900 XT, is Navi 21. So we see that we get a 3 here. And then they increase the second number there as the chips get worse, which I know might sound kind of backwards, but that's how they do it. So we've got some idea of what 31, 32, and 33 will look like. Again, we don't know exactly what these would be called, but the 31 will probably correspond to what we would call the 7900 XT. That's probably what it'll be called. And then we would probably also get a cut down version of that for a 7800 XT. And then dropping down to the Navi 32 GPU, which again is based on a lot of the same technology, but would be a smaller actual GPU size, right? So they have these various, die sizes based on the different, on the same RDNA 3 technology, right? And that's how it works in every product generation. So the 79 and 78 would be based on this one, the Navi 31, and then we drop down to probably a 7700 XT for a 32, Navi 32, and the Navi 33 would drop down to a 7600 XT. Now, here's what's really interesting, because we do have some performance target rumors. Now, to be clear, these chips aren't out in the wild to have us any real benchmarks on these, but we do have the usual sources rumoring at least performance targets. Whether or not we actually hit those performance numbers, question mark. And what's really interesting is that the 7600 XT equivalent on the Navi 33 die is actually rumored to about have the performance of Navi 21. Navi 21 is a 6900 XT, right? That's a big deal. So the mid-range chip is rumored to be targeting the performance levels of the absolute top-end current AMD card, which is crazy. And then The Navi 31 GPU, which would be like our 7900 XT, again, is rumored to have performance targets at 2.5 times the best they could get out of Navi 21, which again is your 6900 XT, so more than doubling that performance target. Now, what we don't know for sure, and it doesn't say this here, but I followed these rumors, is it is unclear whether these are actual gaming performance targets or whether these are floating point operations, right? Teraflops or whatever you call it, right? T-flops. And to be clear, flops don't necessarily translate directly to gaming performance. So if we did get 2.5x the floating point operations in this new card, that would not necessarily just equal 2.5x gaming performance, especially nowadays, given that there's other types of gaming performance, right? We have the ray tracing, and that's a big question mark here. Also, I think what AMD really needs here is a better DLSS competitor. FSR has been a great stopgap, and it is certainly usable, and I certainly like it. But it is definitely not a real DLSS competitor in terms of using the motion vector data, the temporal data, as well as having some actual AI reconstruction versus just a straight up upscale. And sure, there's some advantages to the way AMD does it. But really, especially at lower resolutions, the DLSS does a better reconstruction job. And I know a lot of people who their main reason to be hesitant to get an AMD GPU is not getting that DLSS support. So that'll be a big question mark. Now, one thing that's not on this spec sheet, but I have seen rumors of, there have been rumors that one of the changes to the Navi 30 RDNA 3, we'll just call it RDNA 3, is that it might have a machine learning acceleration chip on it, unlike what they currently have. Not necessarily the same thing as, the RTX cards, tensor cores or whatever, but something along those lines, so that if they did want to have hardware accelerated machine learning upscaling technology, there's rumors that they could have that. But I've actually seen conflicting rumors on that, so I don't think we could be sure, but I certainly wouldn't be surprised to see that. It's also very clear that AMD has been branding FSR as FSR 1.0. They're very clear on putting that 1.0 there, which means they absolutely have plans to develop further versions of FSR. And I think what would make the most sense is to have a more advanced version similar to DLSS. Also, there's, Intel's XeSS, which should have some support, fallback support to other GPUs like AMD GPUs, although not run as efficiently as it does on Intel hardware. But I don't think AMD should wait around to hope Intel kind of launches something that works for them too. I think it would make sense for them to be developing their own competitor here. But to be clear, we don't have a lot of information on that. Another big question mark is ray tracing, and I would expect NVIDIA to still have a ray tracing advantage. However, based on these performance targets and the fact that the higher end chips, possibly even both 31 and 32 chips, are rumored to be multi-chip module. So this is where basically all the GPUs we've had up till this point are a single chip, right? You've got your single chip and that's your GPU. These are rumored to be multi-chip modules, so you're packing in two into the same GPU, right? Into the same graphics card, and that could be allowing for some crazy performance gains, like we're seeing targeted here. Now, from the NVIDIA side, there's rumors that Hopper architecture could be a multi-chip module design, but it's also the rumor that Hopper is not the next consumer, gaming graphics card architecture that Lovelace is. And Lovelace is not rumored to be a multi-chip module design, meaning that it is actually quite possible and maybe even quite likely that at least in terms of straight up rasterized performance, AMD could just have a flat out win with this next hardware generation, which would be really interesting to see. Now, we're also expecting a very increased power draw from these cards given this performance, and we're expecting that on the NVIDIA side as well. And in general, how should I put this? So how much should we actually care about any of this? Well, this is great. These are great. It's nice to have a rough idea of what's coming. Should you be waiting for this? What are the prices going to be? So obviously prices at this point are going to be speculation. But I think that the days of reasonable prices are over. Like, by the end of this year, are we going to get back to the prices we used to have? Well, one issue is inflation. Inflation is real. And even if, cryptocurrency mining goes away and scalpers are a little bit more under control and all of that, maybe the supply chain has some fixes, I don't think we're going to see GPU prices go back to where they were because, I think the companies are just aware that they can charge more. I would expect our top-end chips, let's compare it to this. Like the 3080 was supposed to be, a $700 graphics card? I would expect the 4080 to MSRP at least $1,000. And I would expect AMD to, if they have a rasterized performance advantage, or even, to match that basically, or at least not give a meaningful discount. And if they actually have a significant lead, to possibly even price themselves higher than NVIDIA. And I think that might be, kind of crazy for them to do. But at the same time, I would not be shocked to see it. When AMD surpassed Intel's performance, they used to be like the budget value CPUs, but they definitely increased their prices when they got that performance advantage. And I would not be shocked to see them do that on the graphics card side as well. So I think it's really going to depend on where they go here, but I think both brands are going to increase prices. And whichever one is slightly more expensive, do we get a $980 7800 XT versus a $999 RTX 4080? You see what I'm saying? I'm not sure we're going to see a meaningful difference there if the performance is close. Anyway, so I'm pessimistic in terms of pricing. Also, if you're like, should I wait for these? Well, keep in mind that graphics card generations don't launch all at the same time. So yes, maybe the 7600 XT might match a 6900 XT in terms of performance if the rumors are true. But when would we actually see the 7600 XT? I would imagine that even though we might see the 7800 XT or 7900 XT come out right at the end of 2022. I would imagine it being months into 2023 before we see the 7600 XT. Which basically means if you're going to buy a GPU right now, waiting for the new generation doesn't necessarily make sense unless you're planning on buying that top-end chip, because it could still be a long time. And this is the way the PC space always is. There's always something better coming out around the corner, and it's not usually worth waiting, especially when we just don't know what supply and pricing is going to do. Like the people who are waiting for the 30 series launch and the people who sold off their 2080 Ti's because, better get some money out of them while we can because the 3070 is going to match that performance. Like we saw what happened to them. So I'm never an advocate for just waiting, kind of indefinitely. Although, if you're happy with your current performance, then you definitely could wait. But if you're in need of an upgrade right now, now's not a great time to buy GPUs, but if you need one now, like I said, I think these are going to be very expensive when they launch. Either way, I'm very excited to see what comes here. I'm so interested to see if AMD actually surpasses NVIDIA in terms of at least straight up performance, just with a clear win. Although I do think it's the ray tracing side of things, and I still think that DLSS, especially if we see a 3.0 version, things like that will still give NVIDIA compelling options. And AMD, still needs to improve their their reputation on their driver side of things as well. I do think they've gotten better, although I do have a 6800 XT, and I do occasionally have some driver issues. It's not the end of the world, and it's not that no NVIDIA card ever has driver issues either. But I think they could continue to improve their reputation on that front. And there's also all the productivity spaces and things where NVIDIA still kind of has a monopoly. Now, we also have Intel entering the space, but Intel's not going to be competing at this performance level. They're not even going to be competing at this performance level, most likely. So they're going to be really mid-range, right? 3070 type performance, which right now is like upper mid-range to high-end, but as soon as this newer generation launches, will kind of be mid to low mid and then below in the budget space. So I don't see them shaking up the pricing at this high end either, if you were thinking they might shake up pricing. If they shake up pricing, it'll be in the lower or mid-range, not at the top end. I expect those prices to continue to be quite high. What do you guys think? Let me know. Have an excellent day.